Before we start today's story, we would like to request you to help out our friend's new channel Timeless Audio Tales, where he puts together some amazing stories. The link is in the description box, so please visit the channel and hit the subscribe button. Now let's start with today's story. My father offered me some invaluable guidance when I began my journey into dating. He stated that individuals of worth do not tolerate disrespect, manipulation, or deceit from women. Remain authentic and consistently embody integrity. It's a principle I've endeavored to uphold. There I found myself, engaged in conversation with my wife, Abigail. The plans have shifted. The merger meeting has been rescheduled, and I need to depart tomorrow morning. I will return late on Sunday. I understand the significance of this wedding, particularly with your role as maid of honor. But I recently received a promotion to CFO. It is imperative that we attend this meeting. Our company's future depends on it. I sincerely apologize. She reacted poorly to it. Are you for real? This has been in the works for quite some time. And now you're backing out at the 11th hour. I must venture forth by myself. Can you imagine how mortifying that will be for me? Isn't there someone else who could fill your role? Abigail, this deal is valued at more than $2 billion. And I am at the forefront of it. For the past year, we've dedicated ourselves to this. And there's no one who can take my place. This deal is crucial for the livelihoods of many individuals. I understand it's challenging, and I'll compensate you with the bonus from the agreement. I see why you're feeling this way. But unfortunately, I can't change the situation. I will return on Sunday. She was seething with anger. Following that discussion, she ceased communication with me and instructed me to sleep in the guest room. There was a lack of intimacy and closeness prior to my trip. That was out of character for her. This chill, this fury. I attempted to grasp the situation, yet I was unable to soothe her. I prepared for my journey and settled in for the night in the guest room. I understood the significance of this wedding to Abigail. Margaret, her friend, had faced numerous challenges. Margaret's former spouse betrayed her trust during a significant health crisis, abandoning her when he found her gradual healing too difficult to cope with. Margaret was left shattered. Yet after an incredible turnaround, she sought a divorce and faced a struggle with depression that lasted 5 long years. Despite the presence of her friends and family, nothing appeared to brighten her mood. One day, she encountered a man at a grocery store. In an instant, her world was illuminated once more. Her new fiancé, Brandon, cherished her, and the wedding was a grand celebration of her resurgence. Abigail had remained steadfast by Margaret's side through every moment. And now she held the esteemed role of maid of honor. I understood that canceling at the last minute caused her pain, but I felt powerless to change the situation. I thought I would just have to endure the consequences and find a way to make amends when I returned. The following morning, just before I was set to leave, I attempted to give Abigail a farewell kiss, but the bedroom door was securely locked. She left it unopened. I expressed my love for her and vowed to reach out from Italy upon my arrival. With a weighty heart, I stepped out toward the awaiting limo, burdened by the gravity of the situation. After 19 years of marriage, I thought Abigail would understand the predicament, but it didn't seem like that was happening. I tried to reach her before my flight, but it went straight to voicemail. I submitted yet another apology. Yearning for a reply, I sent a message before takeoff and another one after landing. Yet I received no response. I realized she was upset, and I would have to offer numerous apologies to regain her favor. With no other option, I called our twin daughters at college, Taylor and Sloan, and explained the situation. I requested that they look in on their mother and ensure she was all right. They acknowledged my concerns and assured me that they would monitor her closely. They have always held a special place in my heart as daddy's girls. And I truly value that bond. Upon my arrival in Italy, I settled into the hotel and reached out to my CEO, only to receive some surprising news. The meeting has been called off. The CEO of the other company faced a family emergency, necessitating a delay in their plans. I immediately booked a direct flight to Philadelphia International Airport, which was only about 30 minutes from the wedding reception. The reception was scheduled for 7 p.m., and I thought I could arrive by 9. I thought that by being there, I could mend things with Abigail. Upon arrival, I picked up a rental car, and the GPS guided me directly to the venue. I got there just after 9. And the place was buzzing. Music, dancing, drinks. Everyone was enjoying themselves, and a few individuals were evidently indulging a little too much. Being there brought me a sense of relief. Despite the long day of travel I had endured, I picked up a double bourbon from the bar and began my search for Abigail. Amidst the bustling crowd of more than 200 individuals, it required some time to catch sight of her. As I savored my drink and surveyed the surroundings, recollections of our shared moments surged forth. Abigail is 5 years my senior, and at the time we crossed paths, she had recently experienced a divorce. Her former spouse, Dr. Edward Walker, had been unfaithful to her with a nurse during his residency. The betrayal struck her deeply, affecting her on both emotional and financial levels. At that moment, she was serving tables, putting in the effort to get by. And when our paths crossed, I noticed a unique spark within her. Despite the challenges she had faced, for 19 wonderful years, we have shared our lives together, nurturing our twin daughters, Taylor and Sloan, with an abundance of love. We have created a life together, and Abigail has always valued my honesty and loyalty in our relationship. We frequently discussed the significance of loyalty, and I respected her decision to walk away from her unfaithful ex. I held a profound admiration for that resilience. Our union was founded on trust and dedication, and I believed it was unshakable. Then I caught sight of Abigail. She found herself seated alongside Edward, her former husband. I was aware of his friendship with Margaret, but I certainly didn't anticipate seeing him here, particularly not in the absence of his wife. It caught me off guard. Exhausted from the journey, I paused for a moment, observing them. They appeared quite amiable, given their past. Before I could approach, Abigail rose, grasped his hand, and guided him to the dance floor. She appeared stunning in her agri dress, and I wished for this to be merely a harmless dance. Yet as they glided through a series of slow songs, an unsettling feeling crept in. Abigail had indulged in some drinks. Her playful demeanor was quite evident. Typically, a couple of drinks would bring out her affectionate and playful side. But witnessing her dance with another man, particularly her ex, felt deeply unsettling. Then arrived the moment that broke me apart. She kissed him, boldly, in plain sight of all. This incident filled me with a sense of humiliation and anger. Seeing Abigail share close moments with Edward, along with his inappropriate touches and their exchanged kisses, left me in complete shock and fury. I felt a surge of anger, and just as I was ready to intervene, they retreated to a nearby table and started kissing as if they were newlyweds. I could clearly see his hands on her chest, and her hand under the table. Right before I was going to confront them, it hit me. My marriage was over. I recalled the words my father often shared. Honor yourself, my boy. Refused to accept mistreatment. So, I decided to act, but I kept it cool. Certainly, I had the power to create a disruption, spoil the flawless ceremony, intervene, and ensure it didn't progress any further. But then I thought, if she's into him, she can have him. She no longer belongs to me. In a state of unexpected tranquility, I retrieved my phone, focused in closely, and captured several detailed images along with a brief video. Then I messaged her, "Can you believe it, darling? My meeting was rescheduled, and I've returned ahead of time. It appears that you're well taken care of this evening. I'll make my way home, assuming you'll be spending the night with Dr. Edward Walker. Now I understand the reason behind your silence regarding my calls and texts. Celebrate and raise a glass to the conclusion of our marriage. I will have left by the time you return tomorrow." I hit send and observed with a sense of calm, intrigued to see if she would notice the message. Indeed, I noticed her phone illuminate. She grasped it, glanced down, and began to press buttons, evidently searching for the message. Abigail quickly regained her composure. Her expression shifted to one of gravity as she absorbed my message. As soon as I noticed her reaction, I left the party and headed to my car. I heard her calling out, "Michael, please hold on." However, I merely cast her a frosty glance, shook my head, and entered my vehicle. Just as she was about to reach me, I sped away. My phone started blowing up with calls, but I was too upset to think about picking up. If she chose to return to her former partner, that was perfectly acceptable to me. After seeing them together, we were definitely done. After 22 long years apart, she seizes the first opportunity to return to him. She needs to clarify things with our family and the kids because this situation falls on her. My phone was inundated with urgent messages. Michael, I urge you to return. It is essential for me to clarify. My affection for you knows no bounds. I kindly ask for your return. Curse it, Michael, it's not as you perceive. My affection for you knows no bounds. After 2 days filled with lengthy flights, the silence of no calls or texts from her, her distant demeanor, and witnessing her with Edward, I found myself uninterested in listening to her anymore. I was furious and wanted nothing to do with her or her justifications. After overlooking 20 calls and messages, I ultimately paused and replied with a single text. Leave me be. I'm thriving in my role. My children are heading off to college, and all expenses are covered. I have the freedom to act as I wish. I still possessed enough vitality to begin anew. After 4 hours on the road during my 7-hour journey back to Louisville, I decided to stop at a diner for a meal and to catch a quick nap in the car before continuing home. As I savored my eggs and bacon, I felt compelled to express my thoughts to the world. In those days, Facebook served as the primary platform for sharing life updates. Between bites, I updated my status from happily married to single and available, and I uploaded 2 photos I had captured of Abigail and Edward sharing a passionate kiss at the wedding. In the second photo, his hand was unmistakably positioned on her chest. Under the photo, I noted that Abigail was reconnecting and moving forward with her ex-husband while I was navigating the dating world. It may have been immature, but it was the truth. I was progressing without her. The amusing part was that Edward was almost 50, balding, overweight, and truly not an improvement in any respect. It baffled me why she would ditch us for some old guy who'd already cheated on her. Perhaps she favored a physician instead of a financial expert. To be honest, it was painful. It hurt a lot. The ache I experienced was beyond anything I had ever recalled. I felt a mix of sadness and anger. Yet there was an underlying amusement as well. She was concluding a 19-year union for a man who had betrayed her more than 2 decades prior. Let go of her and let go of him. They complement one another perfectly. I refuse to accept that level of disrespect. Some may argue it was merely a kiss and a bit of touching. Not significant enough to warrant such a reaction. Well, in my book, either my woman is committed to me or she's free to be with someone else. Each of us navigates our own path. Following my leisurely breakfast and a refreshing 2-hour nap in the car, I resumed my journey, finally arriving in my driveway at 7 a.m. as I powered on my phone. A flurry of notifications erupted, demanding my attention. A seemingly endless stream of arrivals left me wondering if they would ever cease. More than 100 messages flooded in from her, her parents, her sister, and her friends. Just 5 minutes after powering on the phone, it began to ring, and the caller was Abigail. I found myself pondering whether she had managed to catch any sleep the previous night or if she had spent it in the company of Edward. I disregarded her calls, having moved beyond all that, concentrating solely on retrieving what I needed from the house and moving forward. I always got along well with her family, and when they called that morning, I took their call. I detailed to her father, James, the events that had transpired. James, I was completely unaware of her discontent with our marriage, but this has become the turning point. The way she disrespected me in front of our acquaintances is something I simply cannot accept. It's evident that she still harbors feelings for that man, so she should be with him. I aim to discover a partner who appreciates my contributions and stays loyal. I'm left with no alternatives. Today, I will be moving out and listing the house for sale. Tomorrow morning, I will reach out to a lawyer to initiate the divorce proceedings. She can remain here until the house is sold, and I will ensure that everything is equitable. Perhaps I'm a bit traditional, but I refuse to share my life with someone who desires another. She made her decision, yet I doubt it was a prudent one. James showed up more than an hour late, begging me to hold off and speak with Abigail before making any rash decisions. However, when he urged me to let her explain, I simply gestured to the photos once more, highlighting how they had openly groped each other at the wedding. That was something I simply couldn't accept, particularly given her behavior. Her father felt let down by her choices and my swift judgment. As I entered what was once our home, tears began to form. understanding that our previously joyful space had become merely an empty remnant of our marriage. In the last 5 years, we have turned our house into the home of our dreams. At that time, mortgage rates were under 2.99%, and the value of the house had increased twofold. As the accountant, I refinanced the home at its full value, pulling out nearly $500 in equity. I established trust funds of $200 for Taylor and Sloane's college education, along with some additional funds to help them launch their lives. The leftover $100 was dedicated to enhancing the house, transforming it into a space we cherished. Due to the reduced interest rate, the monthly payment has only risen by $700 in comparison to when we withdrew the equity. It was a clear decision, and Abigail had gone back to her role as a receptionist to manage the additional monthly expenses. My salary was reasonable, nothing over the top, but as the newly promoted CFO, I would be getting stock options the next year, which would act as our retirement fund. Abigail showed little concern for our finances as long as her needs were satisfied. She relied on my financial knowledge and lived a life of ease. I attempted to clarify the stock options multiple times, yet her disinterest didn't really affect me. I eagerly anticipated our future, filled with joy. With the merger coinciding with the end of my marriage, there was a promise of approximately 40,000 shares in stock options if the deal went through successfully. After several years of waiting to exercise the stock options, the prospect of the shares reaching $100 each filled me with a strong sense of confidence about what lies ahead. Due to the postponement of the merger, the options would not be included in the divorce settlement. I intended to pursue a separation based on irreconcilable differences and divide our assets, which totaled approximately $50 in savings. We would split the earnings from the sale of the house, but given the substantial mortgage, there likely wouldn't be a significant amount to share. At 44, Abigail would depart with her vehicle and approximately $25. Had she remained loyal, she might have embraced a life filled with love and a stable future. Yet, at this moment, my fury and shame eclipsed any fondness or recollections I held for her. All I sought was resolution and for her to grasp the significance of what she had forfeited. After 2 decades apart, encountering Edward once more unleashed a torrent of memories, a mix of joy and sorrow. He was once her husband, and they shared a good relationship until his infidelity brought their marriage to an end. They shared a bond, yet from all that Abigail revealed, he never held the same significance for her as I did. I, Michael, was her present husband, a more appealing man, a fantastic companion, and I was certain she genuinely loved me. Yet somehow she had ended up with Edward, allowing him to embrace her and kiss her. Fully aware that it wasn't right, she continued to tease him. Fully aware that it was a mistake, she indulged a bit too much and felt disheartened that I wasn't by her side. She ought to have paused, yet it was undeniably pleasurable. Edward still appeared to be her ideal companion in certain aspects, and she believed that a bit of innocent flirting wouldn't cause any harm. After all, he was single now, and I hadn't adjusted my plans to attend this significant wedding with her. She believed she was entitled to a bit of pleasure. As Edward pressed his lips against hers once more, a wave of happiness washed over her. His kisses took her back to the old days, and as they swayed together in a secluded corner, she allowed herself to think that a little kissing and intimacy was permissible. All the other guests at the party were enjoying themselves as well. She intended to reconcile with me at a later time. Then arrived the message. Her phone buzzed, and she thought it could be me reaching out to see how she was doing. The message filled her with dread. I informed her of my presence, and she realized she was in a predicament. At first, she didn't notice me, but she assumed I was on my way out. Abigail panicked, understanding she needed to articulate her thoughts before the moment slipped away. In a whirlwind of uncertainty, she concocted an excuse to Edward about needing to visit the lady's room and swiftly exited the wedding. Her heart raced as she saw the exit door closing behind her. She dashed down the corridor, her high heels echoing sharply against the surface. Upon laying her eyes on me, Michael, she understood. I had spotted her with Edward. She cried out, pleading for me to pause. However, I chose not to reply. I entered my car and drove away in silence. She made an effort to pursue, but the moment had passed. My vehicle was already departing. Now she keeps calling and texting me repeatedly. But I haven't replied. She feels utterly crushed, and her feelings are completely justified. She understands the reason behind my silence. After dispatching yet another 10 messages, she ultimately received a reply from me. Move on from you. Later, 2 of her friends discovered her kneeling outside in the cold, struggling to make sense of the events that had just unfolded. Both were taken aback by her actions and anxious about the prospects of our marriage. They were aware of my determination and knew I wouldn't let this slip away without a fight. The following morning, in Louisville at 10 a.m., I found myself packing my belongings. At the kitchen table, I relished a final cup of coffee in the space we transformed into a sanctuary. A swirl of sorrow and frustration enveloped me. Upon completion, I placed the empty cup in the sink and penned a short note for Abigail. I made it clear to her that she shouldn't call me, and that we would discuss things once the divorce papers were prepared. I didn't even put my signature on it. I placed my wedding ring on top as a parting gesture. Before departing for the final time, I powered up my laptop, allocated our finances, and terminated our shared credit card after settling the outstanding balance. From this moment forward, she would take charge of her own life. If she challenged the divorce, she would be responsible for managing all the bills by herself. She simply couldn't handle the mortgage and utilities on her own without my assistance. The property is likely to attract buyers swiftly if priced appropriately. It was highly sought after. If she consented to the divorce, we could conclude this unsuccessful union quickly, allowing her to reunite with her cherished Edward. I departed from what had been my refuge, venturing into a strange and shadowy realm. Later, I learned from friends at the wedding that Abigail had been heartbroken after my departure. She wept uncontrollably, ultimately succumbing to her emotions and losing consciousness from excessive drinking and the sheer fatigue of her sorrow. Her friends were concerned and empathized with her situation. They made several attempts to contact me, leaving voicemails and texts, wishing I would return to prevent her from sabotaging the wedding reception. They returned her to her hotel room, tucked her into bed, and made sure to check on her multiple times during the night. As she opened her eyes to the new day, the weight of reality crashed down upon her. She understood what had transpired and quickly attempted to reach me, pleading for forgiveness, urging me to return her call. However, after observing her behavior, I felt a strong desire to distance myself from her. I turned a blind eye to each effort she made to connect with me. On Sunday morning, I awoke to a dreadful hangover and the heavy weight of impending divorce pressing down on me. At noon, I took to the skies and returned home, where my dad was waiting to pick me up from the airport. Later, I discovered that Michael had contacted my dad earlier to inform him that he wouldn't be able to pick me up himself. The anxious expression on my dad's face suggested that I must have appeared quite awful. My father was my foundation. Upon seeing him, I rushed over, tears streaming down my face as I leaned on his shoulder. "Dad, I really messed things up, and I believe Michael has walked away from me." With a melancholic look, he softly consoled me. "I spoke with him this morning, and the outlook doesn't appear encouraging." "What was going through your mind, Michael, especially regarding Edward?" "I'm not sure, Dad. I was intoxicated, furious with Michael for his absence at the wedding. I recognize that I erred, yet he requested my forgiveness. I didn't even share a bed with him." "My dear," he breathed out. "From the images I observed, it could very well have been identical. I have my doubts about Michael being the forgiving type, particularly after witnessing those photos. Being with another man in that way feels like a deep betrayal to him." Upon arriving home, I wished for Michael's presence, yet a part of me understood that he had already departed. All day, I found myself in tears, reaching out to him, longing to express my apologies. The irony struck me with great force. I found myself repeating the same error with Edward that Michael had once made with me long ago. Michael, the one I genuinely cherished, appeared to have vanished without a trace. Seeing his wedding ring abandoned on the table, accompanied by a brief note, shattered my heart. In the meantime, I had moved into the company condo, intended for visiting clients. As it was unreserved, I communicated the situation to my CEO, who gave his approval for my stay there. My boss, Bill, who was also a close friend, experienced a similar situation years back. He even suggested that I consider receiving this year's stock options for better leverage in the divorce. The following day, I made my way to my office on the 16th floor, fully aware that Abigail would be unable to bypass security to visit me. I had previously informed the security team that if Abigail attempted to come by, they were to kindly show her the way out. They performed their duties effectively, and when she tried to drop by on Monday, she soon understood that she wouldn't have the chance to see or speak with me at work. Regardless of her attempts, I was resolute in my decision to maintain no communication with her. She found herself in uncertainty, unaware of my whereabouts and unable to contact me by phone. Overwhelmed by isolation, regret, and fear of the future, she found herself compelled to confront the consequences of her actions. In the midst of everything, my daughters, Taylor and Sloan, contacted me in distress, imploring me to have a conversation with their mother. I conveyed to them with a steady yet gentle demeanor that their mother had decided to be with another person. And to me, that decision represented a distinct act of betrayal. I emphasized the importance I place on trust. Before they could dispute, I stressed that their mother's actions constituted a breach of our trust. They acknowledged my perspective and honored my choice. I aimed for them to understand that their mother's decisions carried weight, and that our separation was unavoidable. Nevertheless, I comforted them with the promise that I would always stand by their side and that I wished for them to continue being a part of my life. I also shared a lesson, hoping they would always remember to respect their future partners and grasp the seriousness of betrayal, as many would not accept such disrespect. Following my post on Facebook, a series of unforeseen events unfolded. Friends and family began reaching out, eager to understand the situation. However, another event unfolded as well. I unexpectedly found myself in high demand among women. I started dating younger women, brimming with energy and enthusiasm, a feeling I hadn't felt in years. The relentless grievances and pessimism from Abigail gave way to thrilling outings, loving text exchanges, and interest from women eager for enjoyable moments. A month following that post, I encountered Julia, who would eventually become my wife. We connected right away and soon became a couple after my divorce from Abigail was finalized. Abigail felt discontent when she discovered my new life. She felt a mix of anger towards herself, alongside jealousy and disappointment that I hadn't offered her another opportunity before moving forward. I declined all her efforts to arrange a meeting, communicating solely through our attorneys. In the end, we parted ways with the house. Once the real estate agent and other expenses were settled, the remaining equity was minimal, totaling less than $11. I concluded that Abigail ought to receive that modest sum. Her legal team put in considerable effort to secure a portion of my future income, but the court determined that the settlement couldn't be contingent on my potential earnings down the line. Instead, they calculated my payment based on my average income. With Abigail employed, managing alimony payments should be quite manageable. Ultimately, I consented to provide her with $2 each month for a duration of 2 years. It wasn't a significant sum, but it was sufficient to support her until she could regain her footing or until she discovered another option, which evidently wasn't going to be me. In the years that ensued, Abigail and I communicated solely through our attorneys, never engaging in direct conversation. She relocated to Milwaukee and became part of a support group, ultimately sharing a home with Dr. Edward Walker, with whom she had developed a close bond. She had lost the joy she once radiated when she was with me. She came to understand, all too late, the price of her choices. Propelled by fury and self-interest, she was aware of how I would respond. Yet she still opted for the unfortunate decision. Though she hadn't shared a bond with Edward that evening, she behaved as if our marriage held no significance, as if she were once more unattached. At our daughter's graduation 3 years later, Abigail encountered my new wife, Julia, who was 28 and expecting, along with our 1-year-old daughter, Eva. Abigail, at 47, appeared significantly older, while Edward, accompanying her, lingered at a distance, sensing the tension in the air. Eventually, Abigail found a moment to converse with me privately. She felt a deep urge to express her remorse, burdened by the weight of her choices and the life we might have still embraced together. She recognized the error of jeopardizing our flawless existence for no reason at all. I informed Abigail that I had let go of any resentment towards her, though I never anticipated seeing her embraced by another. I expressed my gratitude for the joyful moments we experienced, for our two amazing daughters, and for the affection we once knew. Though her actions caused me pain, they ultimately guided me to Julia and a new family, allowing me to transcend my anger. I encouraged her to concentrate on what lies ahead, reassuring her that our history was in the past. I conveyed my best wishes to her and shared my desire to keep encountering each other at family gatherings. In that instant, Julia came alongside me, cradling our daughter, and I facilitated their introduction. The disparity in their ages was unmistakable. At 47, Abigail could effortlessly be confused for Julia's mother. This revelation intensified Abigail's remorse for her decisions, the love of her life slipping away due to one night of fury and self-centeredness. In the years that followed, we found ourselves reunited at our daughters' weddings. Abigail chose to stay single, yet she carried on her life alongside Edward, who treated her with kindness. Yet, witnessing me alongside my new family and our little girl evoked cherished memories from the past for her. The joyful existence we once shared had faded into a mere recollection, leaving her to navigate her days steeped in remorse for the affection and joy that had slipped away. That summer, in a surprising turn of events, I purchased the old family home after cashing in my stock options when it reappeared on the market. Everyone in my family and my friends, except for Abigail, were overjoyed that the house brimming with our cherished memories was once more in our possession. My daughters particularly cherished the visit, reflecting on their childhood in that nurturing home. It's a pity that Abigail decided to take a different route. She would have treasured the opportunity to pursue the life we once dreamed of sharing. Life continues to unfold, and I find joy in constructing a fresh existence and crafting new memories with Julia and our daughters. A valuable lesson has been acquired. Before you choose to betray someone, ensure that you will never require their presence again. Thanks to everyone who took the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing if you haven't already. Feel free to share your thoughts on the events in the comments below. Take care.